Good evening. Welcome to 30 Letters in 30 Days. We are on letter number 19. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh. Don't forget Yalav Yaveh. Rosh Chodesh Nissan. Chodesh HaGeula. That means it's 11 days until Yud Alef Nissan. So I wanted to let everybody know that we're doing 30 letters in 30 days, as you know. But for those who would like a more manageable goal, we have a program called 11 Letters in 11 Days. No, it's not different letters. It's the same letters, just only 11 of them. And that's an initiative that's actually taking place in schools across the world. And if you want more information how to be part of the 11 Letters in 11 Days program, go to the website, 30letters30days.com. And that's where you're going to find everything, including the PDFs that we use every night, and you can print them out, and the Shabbos table companion guide. You can print those out there, and the archives of the previous classes and everything. It's all at 30letters30days.com. And now you can find out information about the 11 letters in 11 days. Okay. Before we start tonight's letter, I want to make a correction. From the feedback that I get from people seem to appreciate the background that I try to provide regarding each of the letters. Yes, that's very important to me to try to explain to the best of my ability when I can who the person was, what the circumstances were. And Baruch Hashem, I do have a research department. 30 Letters in 30 Days is very much a team project. I am the guy who sits in front of the camera, so it looks like it's Shay's Tao, but it really is a whole team of people. And without that help, I would not be able to give you as much background as I do. So I want to specifically thank, again, I mentioned them at an earlier class, but Zalik Shemtov and Mendel Rosenblatt, who are giving me research as I come into each class. I messed up one detail last night, and that was regarding the biography of Rebbe Yechiel Michal Debruskin, to whom last night's letter was written. He was indeed a Rav in Romania, as I had said. I also correctly said that later he came to Eretz Yisrael and he was a Rav in Haifa. But I got the dates a little bit wrong. He made Aliyah, he moved to Eretz Yisrael in 1950. So by the time that Rebbe was writing to him, the letter that we read last night was 1959. He was already in Haifa. And now it actually makes more sense why the Rebbe was asking him to help with the Romanians who are moving to Eretz Yisrael, because he was asking him as a person there already in the land of Israel to welcome and greet and help to accommodate these newly arrived Romanian immigrants. And why should he be the one to do so? Because he had lived in Romania and he spoke the language and he knew the culture, and presumably he even knew some of these families. So that's important to understand. He was already in Haifa. He had been in Romania. He had already left Romania, and the Rebbe wanted him to help to acclimate the newly arrived Romanian Jews who were coming to Eretz Yisrael. So just to clarify that from last night. Tonight's letter, I don't know who it's to. You know, sometimes the names are completely removed and we don't know, and so there's no research that we can do. So I have no information about who the letter writer is, other than what I can deduce with my Sherlock Holmes sleuthing abilities. So let's go. Baruch Shem Chof Tes Adar Sheni Tavshin Yud Tes, Brooklyn. No, actually, I'm sorry. We do know who this is to. It says the name right here. Okay, there you go. Live television, ladies and gentlemen. Mar Micha Eldad. Sheyichya. Shalom uvracha. I should correct what I was saying. I didn't personally find information about the letter writer. And if anyone does have information, or is perhaps from the family of Mar Micha Eldad, or perhaps is Mar Micha Eldad himself, please let us know. But at any rate, yes, okay. I don't know more information about him other than what can be deduced from the letter. Shalom uvracha. Masha hineni kabbalas michtava, I am hereby confirming receipt of your letter, shniskabel bi'ichur zman, that I received after much delay. Be'kosef Rashi Prokim midivrei yemei chayav, and in that letter you write about the main points of your life, like the chapters of your life. You basically give a summary of your life. Puolose ata betur madrich le matoim b'miktsaya hachaklous, that you are now currently a counselor acting as an agricultural instructor. Vegam bebeis hasefer reshet ahale Yosef Yitzchak Lubavitch asher betanoch. And you work within the reshet. We've spoken about that before. The reshet means the network, specifically the network of Lubavitcher schools in the Holy Land that was named for the Frierdiker Rebbe. So he's teaching agriculture in one of these Chabad-affiliated schools. These were publicly funded schools which provided some degree of religious education. These were not Tomchei Temimim. This was not like the level of the official Lubavitcher yeshivas. But this was, we've explained already, this was a very important initiative that the Rebbe put a lot of time and energy and focus into, as far as bringing mostly unaffiliated families into some form of kosher Jewish education. That's really what these schools were about. They were not catering to religious communities who had their own yeshivas and chadarim that they made for themselves. This was more about outreach and reaching families who might not otherwise receive a kosher chinuch. So this young man is teaching in the Reshet school in Ta'anach, which is a town in Israel. Umamshich asher yeshnam kshuyim ubayot ha'oimdes bifneihem. And you write that you're having difficulties and problems. Okay, so this is a young man. He's teaching agriculture in one of the Reshet schools, and he's having a hard time. Okay, that's what we know. Ubevad, you think that Rebbe's going to tell him to quit? I'm just joking around with you guys. Okay. You have to appreciate Igros, and you have to appreciate the Rebbe to think that joke is even somewhat amusing. The joke is that there's no way in the world that I was going to tell this guy to quit just because he has bayot, just because he has problems. Okay, but let's find out what the Rebbe says to him to encourage him. We know that Rebbe is going to encourage. Let's find out how. It's no mystery what the Rebbe is going to say. He's going to encourage him. How he's going to encourage him? Let's find out. Ubavada yedea havtochas beida elam umanhigai. Oh, speaking about Hashem. The Rebbe is getting spiritual right off the bat. For sure you know about the promise of the beida elam umanhigai. That's a way that the Rebbe would often refer to Hashem, the creator of the world and its conductor. Hashem didn't just make the world and then leave it alone, God forbid. He made the world and continues to conduct the world. And Chassidus would explain he continues to conduct it by continuing to make it. It's being regenerated even at this moment. Something from nothing. Asher ene ba betrunya im briyosef. that Hashem promises he will not make unreasonable demands upon his creations. If he doesn't make tyrannical demands, he doesn't make unreasonable demands. Hashem is reasonable. He makes demands, but they're reasonable. Ulafum gamla shichna, or another similar rabbinic idiom, which has a similar meaning. According to the camel is its load. In other words, Hashem is going to only give work to a person that is appropriate for that person's capacities. Hashem's not going to overburden somebody. That means every individual was given the capacities and the possibilities. If I have to make a deal here, I feel like koiches means your own inner capacities, your own potentials, your abilities, your prowess. Afsharius is more situational, like the opportunity to do something. That's what it seems like to me, like inside and outside. So when Hashem gives you a job to do, then he gives you the inner ability and he creates a situation around you to be conducive to that, to fulfill your mission in the most. See, this is very important. The Rebbe says not just to fulfill your mission, like and get a C+, like barely pass. I guess C+ is not barely passing, but for a Jewish student it is. If you have a Jewish mother, C+ is barely passing. But to get an A+, to do everything in the best possible way. Now, this is speaking generally about any job that Hashem gives somebody, whatever job it may be. So how much more so if you're talking about a job that involves education within a pure Jewish context. So for sure, if Hashem gives somebody a job, he's already giving them the ability to do that job and to do it very well. How much more so when that's a job that is so precious and so important in Hashem's eyes, the job of educating Jewish children. So Hashem is signing the checks. Don't worry. There's money in the account. Okay. Moised HaKaveya. Ve'al koponim mashpia b'midah hachi chashuva. That in this case, really, we're saying the person's teaching in the Reshet, that he's involved in Jewish education in a moised, meaning an institution, meaning the school where he's teaching, which establishes, that's what kaveya means, or at least influences. I guess kaveya is a little stronger, mashpia is a little bit less. B'midah hachi chashuva, in a very prominent way, al tzurasim shel chanichov, on the character of the students, lemeshech kol yemei chayeihem, for the rest of their lives. Right? So basically the Rebbe is explaining here the gravity of this responsibility. You're in a position where you are influencing, you are either koiveya or mashpia, either you're establishing or at the very least you're having some influence upon the form. That's the term that actually tsurasim is the form that these children's characters are, their inner character, their the kind of personalities that they're going to have, the kind of people, the kind of integrity that they're going to have. That's all sort of being influenced by you. So this is serious stuff. Shebezeh hariz chus harabim Messiah says kol segel hamedim shel hamoisad. And therefore, the schus harabim, this is one of the Rebbe's common phrases. This is a rabbinic dictum or a idiom, the idea of schus harabim, the merit of the many. And the Rebbe invokes this concept quite often. So the Rebbe is basically saying, because of the importance of the work that you're doing, you have a very powerful energy behind you that's backing you up. It's called tzchus harabim, the merit of the many, because you're bringing merit to all of these children who you're affecting, and you're affecting them as far as the direction of the rest of their lives. And it's this, so this tzchus harabim is helping all of the faculty of the institution, not just the teachers, but ha'anhola, the administration, v'chol ha'masayim bisusai, v'his pachtusai, and everyone who helps to back up, to support the institution. They're all being assisted with the tzchus harabim that they are accruing by being involved in Jewish education. Okay, so that's the first thing is Hashem's not gonna give you unrealistic jobs. But now the Rebbe is going to mention something else. Tikvos asher l'dechavosei ein tzorech bir begeidel v'chshivas hatafkid v'chein loy ba'adgosha. I hope that to a guy like you, I don't even have to explain the incredible importance of the job that you have. Asher af shalachera chaklaus v'tava ein ze limud kilimudei kodesh. That although seemingly agriculture, remember he's teaching agriculture, chaklaus. Agriculture seemingly is not as an important subject as teaching actual limudei kodesh, teaching actual Torah. But the Rebbe says to someone like you, I hope I don't even have to elaborate on this point. That even though you're teaching agriculture and not limudei kodesh, ki im limud b'hanegeh letava v'avedas ha'adam, avedas ha'adama, that you're teaching a skill that has to do with nature and with working the land. Hine pshita shegam al zehu atzivui debechol drachecho dehu. But it's obvious that even when you're teaching agriculture, King Solomon's advice still applies, which is know him. Know him means capital H him. Know Hashem in all of your ways. Know Hashem in all of your ways. So know Hashem in all of your ways means that even when you're not doing something that's explicitly a mitzvah, you are still able to connect to Hashem. So maybe you're not teaching Torah, maybe you're teaching agriculture, but hey, B'chol drachecha dehu still applies. And even when you're teaching agriculture, there's a way to do it where you're mindful of Hashem and you turn agriculture into a spiritual subject. So it doesn't matter that you're not teaching limudei kodesh. All the everything I'm saying about the importance of chinuch still applies, even though your subject is only agriculture. Probably shouldn't say only agriculture. Even to say only sounds dismissive. That Rebbe just made the whole point how important it is. There's a rule, a general principle in spirituality and in the way that people behave. Like it's explained in the Rambam Hilchos Deis, and it's explained in the Torah Shulchan Aruch Erechaim Siman Reish Lamed Aleph at length, that a person has to serve Hashem in all aspects of life, not just in overtly religious or ritual observance. Ubefrat shebeteva Talmud Lachker es Rabbe. Okay, now this is almost like a separate point, a related point, but a separate point. Now, especially that it is the nature of a student, lechakois es Rabbe, that a student imitates a teacher. B'chol inyanov, in all of his matters. Af shemakshiv lekach hu mimenu rak b'miktzaya acher, even though he's only taking a class in a specific subject. In other words, you can't say, well, my students, since I'm teaching you agriculture, only imitate how I plant seeds, because that's what I'm here to teach you. It doesn't work that way. A student imitates all of the aspects of the teacher. So now the Rebbe is adding another dimension to it, which is not only does it not matter that you're teaching agriculture, because a Jew can find meaning, spiritual meaning, in anything, including agriculture. Why not? But in addition to that, the fact that you're teaching them, the subject is not even as relevant as the fact that you are there as a role model, being observed by them, and they're picking up on everything that you do, even what you're not teaching them, even what has nothing to do with the subject that you're hired to teach. So your influence is far greater than just the subject. So you need to know that anybody who's listening in your class about farming, about agriculture, they are looking at you carefully and they're thinking about what you're doing. How do you conduct yourself in Torah and mitzvahs? And remember, this school had a lot of children who are coming from not such an observant background. So it could be, in many ways, the strongest impression of Jewish observance they're getting, at least for many of these children, might be from this teacher. So the Rebbe is saying, aside from the subject that you're teaching, these children are picking up from you all of the ways that you serve Hashem. That's all being noted by them. They are noticing. And the Rebbe doesn't give specific examples of what that might mean, but they'll see things like you're making a bracha before you take a drink, or they'll see that in bein adam lechaveira that you're very careful about not to speak lashon hara or rechilas, or they're going to pick up from you what it means to be an observant Jew, even though that's not really your job. Your job is to teach agriculture. This is going to affect them. And in fact, many times, nearly all times, this inadvertent influence that you have just by being who you are is going to have more influence on them than the actual subject that you're teaching, which in this case is agriculture. In many, many cases, it's quite common that this is a bigger influence. And that is actually the nature of youth and children. That roundabout, oblique, indirect influence Miskabel etzlam b'neiach yeser u'be'emek yeser is more easily accepted by them and more deeply accepted by them. Ma'ashpa bo al yidei limud hatolas oyel tzivui ugzera, than influence that comes in the form of putting upon them a yoke or a commandment or a decree. Very interesting here. It sounds like now that Rebbe got us to a point where an agriculture teacher actually is going to have more Jewish influence on these kids than their Limudei Kodesh teacher. See how the Rebbe built us up. First, it starts off by saying, well, even though you're teaching agriculture, everything a Jew does is Jewish. Ultimately, there's nothing secular in the life of a Jew. You have to know Hashem in all of your ways. So even in agriculture, it's Jewish. Okay, that was the first step. And then the Rebbe said, oh, and by the way, it's not just the subject you're teaching, it's you as a person. They're going to be watching your behavior and learning from you what a Jew is. Okay? So your influence is beyond the subject that you teach. Oh, okay. So now he brought him up to like the level of a Limudei Kodesh teacher, even though that's not the subject he's teaching. But the next thing that Rebbe says is, oh, by the way, the nature of youth is that roundabout hashpah is actually more effective. The Rebbe says it's accepted more. Benoyach means like more pleasantly, more gently, more easily, and ba'omek, there's more depth. It's accepted. They internalize it more than obvious frontal instruction where you tell them this is what I'm telling you to do. So actually, the agriculture teacher, because he's not teaching Torah, he can actually have more of a Jewish influence on the kids than their teacher, whose job is overtly to teach them Yiddishkeit. How you like that? So this guy was writing about the fact he's teaching agriculture in this Reshet school and that he's having problems. The Rebbe didn't really take away his problems, but the Rebbe made the importance of his job so big that the problems, no doubt, seem trivial in comparison. Let's continue here. By the way, if I had longer to sort of just fabreng with you guys about these letters, I think I would, at this juncture, start to muse about how we can apply this as a principle in education. How to find opportunities to have indirect hashpah. As parents, as educators, even when you're also teaching directly and explicitly and clearly, but can we look for opportunities to teach things indirectly? Because the Rebbe is saying there's a special power in teaching things in a more oblique fashion, where it's not so on the nose. Okay. Hamurim ha'amur, the takeaway from the above. Shebi'im ad ata nohag al pi shuras hadin Torah, egam lifnim shuras hadin, if you have been conducting yourself until now according to Torah law, or even a little bit beyond Torah law, meaning you've been a little bit pious above and beyond. If that's the case, right, that you've been doing everything properly or even more than properly, borur, it's clear, shemerega she hashgacha al yena asatu l'mashpia al kama b'nei Yisrael. But from now that the divine providence has placed you in a position of influence over many Jews, all of lahaisif b'zeh you have to increase. So whatever level of observance you've been doing, which I'm sure is according to law and maybe even beyond the law, but now you got to go beyond the law because you're an influential guy. People are watching you. People are learning from you. People are imitating you. So you've got to step up. Ubemidde de tefech almanas latpiach. We said this last night. Was it last night? Or was it a couple nights ago? That the idea of something that's moist enough to make something else moist. So I'm not going to get into the context in Torah where it talks about this. It's chiefly an idea of transmission of ritual impurity. But there's something that's wet, and there's something that's wet enough that it makes something else wet. So if your hand is wet enough that you can touch something and the thing that you touch becomes wet, that's called Toifeach Amanas Latpiach. And it's used idiomatically as an expression that it's in a good way, that it's not enough that you are religious, but your devotion to Torah has to be so shining and so luminescent that people around you, sort of by osmosis, end up being lifted up to a higher level because of you. So it's not enough that you're maintaining what you need to maintain for yourself. You've got to do more so that the people in your sphere of influence are also being affected positively. And none of this is by strong-arming anybody or coercing them. This is all about just being a very compelling role model and a very compelling example, a dugma chaya, a living example. So now you got to do more. Bichdei shafilu imrak yechaku eisei lemechza. So that even if they only imitate you partially, or even less than partial, like they only pick up a little bit of your good stuff, they won't be lacking the proper temperament and conduct aligned with the teachings of Torah. In other words, follow this. You've got to be so piping hot that the people around you are at least warm. That, see, if you're just living up to the legal requirements, then your students, if they imitate only part of what you're doing, well, if you're only going exactly up to what you need to be doing, and they only imitate part of what you're doing, now they're only doing part of what they need to be doing. And if you're going a little bit beyond what you're supposed to be doing, still it's questionable if they're going to imitate enough of your conduct that they're going to be doing everything they need to be doing. But if you're doing way beyond what you need to be doing, then if they only imitate part of that, they're going to end up at least doing everything that they need to be doing. So this is a very important idea for any teacher, and by the way, every parent is a teacher, to think about. That if the children who are watching me only imitate some of the good stuff I do, so I got to be doing so much good stuff that even a partial imitation of it will land the kids in a good place. God willing, you should update me with good news in the above. Certainly this merit of teaching, influencing, is great enough to increase Hashem's blessings for you in your personal life as well. In other words, all this good that you're going to be doing is going to come back to you in the form of blessings for whatever it is that you need in your life. With a blessing for a happy and kosher Passover. And it's Rosh Chodesh Nissan, so I'll also wish you a bracha for a happy and kosher Passover. And again, a good Chodesh HaGeula. Don't forget the Nasi tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Oh, for a double header tonight. Right, tomorrow night's Thursday night, double class.